Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast. We're going to get started here in just a second with our training on how to attract buyers' attention. But before we do, I'm just going to give it a half second here because I usually get on a few minutes early, 2-3 minutes early to make sure LinkedIn pushes the word out. But we're going to get rocking and rolling. Thanks, Curtis. I appreciate the birthday greetings there. Hey, Ross. I'm going to be doing something different today too. So it'll be interesting to see how many people show up and how many people pay attention to the fact that I'm doing something a little different than I'm used to doing just for the fun of it. I want to do a behind the scenes type training, if you will. So instead of me trying to, have all my ducks in a row or have like what I've been doing lately this week is putting in slides that really are progressing, which I like and a lot of people like. So I'll come back and do more of those. What I really want to do though is just kind of show you what I do and go back and forth between showing you a little bit of my whiteboard and showing you some of my screen to share some of the stuff that I work on. One of the things I wanted to start off with, though, just a quick tip to those who are early and on time is my tip for you is there's this 80-20 rule, right? We hear about the 80-20 rule, Pareto's law, and the idea behind it, we often think, is that 20% of your effort will deliver 80% of your result. Or 20% of your customers will deliver 80% of your headaches, things like that. My tip for you is to keep in mind the 80-20 rule is more like a guideline than an actual rule, right? It could be 25-75, or it could be 1%, 99%, right? 1% of your customers are giving you 99% of your headaches. Maybe it's time to let that customer go, right? Or the reverse, 1% of your customers could be leading to something, or one thing you do could lead to 90% of your success, 99% of your success this week. And so when you think about the tasks that are on your shoulders as you're wrapping up the week, if you're here live, or as you go into planning your next week each week, think about the 80-20 rule and whatever percentage it is. And what's the one thing that could lead to the biggest percentage gain in your week? If I did this one thing, we would move forward. For example, this week, our biggest gain, and we did a lot this week. So our biggest gain, though, was getting out the May directory of the federal small business specialists. There's over 1,000 of them, plus another 100 plus SBLOs from large prime contractors. And we got out that new version. And because we did, we're able to help so many more people. That's our mission. That's our vision. And so by doing that, that was a big week for us. And I want you to think about that same thing for yourself. Again, thanks everybody. Birthday greetings in there. Yeah, we're going to the whiteboard. For those of you who don't know this, I live and breathe on a whiteboard, right? I have 10-foot whiteboards around my office. In my last company, I had 4 of them on wheels, and I would roll back and forth, moving my mind from one to the other. And the reason I love whiteboards is because they don't constrain your thinking. Whiteboards allow me to just start rambling, but rambling on the board. Later, I can begin to constrain it. Even when I write proposals, by the way, I'm a salesperson, so I'm not a proposal writer, but I definitely write proposals. And when I write proposals, I write it starting this way. What am I thinking about? What are some of the challenges? Where am I going? So I love the idea of a whiteboard, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But today's training is about how to attract your federal buyers' attention. It's really important to attract them. And I want you to be attracting them so you're seen as a subject matter expert. So you're seen as a trusted advisor. And if you don't know the difference, right, a subject matter expert is where somebody looks at you and says, okay, that person knows what they're talking about. But a trusted advisor is, I want to listen to that person. I want to follow their guidance. It's not enough that you know what you're talking about, but you want to move up in shifting that authority so people look to you as an advisor, a mentor, somebody they can trust, and not just somebody who knows everything. There's a big difference in there, and those are just evolution steps for you as you move forward in attracting your customers. The other way we describe this, and this is more of a social media term, but I love it when we heard it, and we've been using this for a couple of years now, is just you want to be a supreme domain authority. You want to be the authority on your topic. For example, for me, I want to be a supreme domain authority on government contracting sales. So sales to me is marketing, business development, capture, proposal, right? All of that is federal sales. That's my area of expertise. I don't try to be a supreme domain authority or even authority on proposal writing or pricing, God forbid, right? That's crazy talk. I don't try to be an authority on the FAR. I'm aware of the FAR. I know how to use the FAR, and I know how to go in and use it to my advantage. Am I an expert on the FAR? No, and I don't want to be. And I want to encourage you to think that same way. Is what can you be seen as the subject matter expert, the supreme domain authority, in order for you to shift to that role of a trusted advisor to your customer? And so today's training is going to be around that, where I'm going to be talking to you about how to attract those buyers, because you need to get out there and attract them. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. I want you to be able to have predictable, repeatable results of attracting buyers, right? So that's why I'm going to teach you the process I follow on a daily basis for trying to attract you into our training, you into my content, etc. And the same way I use it to attract federal buyers. In my case, they're not buyers, but I'm really trying to attract federal leaders and influencers so then I can bring them to your attention, right? That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, help the buyers, help me, and help others remember who you are in the chat through your company name, your core competency, 2 or 3 keywords that describe your core competency and what you sell. Put that into the chat. And even if you've done it 100 times before, put it in again, because you never know who shows up. I get different buyers coming in at different points, and people engage in this content for a long time afterwards, right? We might have anywhere from 25 to 100 people who watch it live on the different channels that we have. We have about 25 to 100 people every day. But then we have over 1,000 people who will come back and watch this in the replay in the next week or two. And so I want you to be able to put your information in there so that people remember. Again, I'm seeing the birthday greetings. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. Hey, the last thing is I just want to say thank you to the GovCon Chamber of Commerce sustaining members. It's $1 a day, but sustaining members are the ones who make this possible for all small businesses across the country. Things like the directory I just said, that's easily worth $50,000 or $100,000 in the time it took to compile 1,000+ names, numbers, and email addresses all across the government, right? So you're providing that. You're helping provide this training and the content we do on a regular basis. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the small businesses and all the people, including the government, who are benefiting from what the GovCon Chamber of Commerce does. So thanks to you all. Okay, so if you're getting in here a little later, I'm going to be doing this differently. Today, I want to kind of do a little behind the scenes, if you will, way that I prepare for my training. I don't want this to be the formal structure. The content is going to be just as good, but I don't like constraining my mind and my thought to PowerPoints all the time. And today, when I was preparing for this, I'm like, wow, I'd rather just go back and forth showing you things. I got things I want to show you on my screen. And so the first thing I wanted to do is just point out, whenever I'm planning something, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because I want you to begin to learn this process the way I do and then adapt it for yourself. But whenever I plan anything out, I've got a central topic, right? Attract federal buyers' attention. That's what I want to teach you. Later on, you're going to hear me talk about how you can do the same thing. And I call this an anchor topic. You put the topic in the middle, and then you brainstorm about what are you going to talk about. And so for me, you see these squares, and you don't have to read the words because I write messy, plus it's angled, and I'll talk to it. But you can see the shapes, right? The squares are where I begin to go, okay, this is what I want to talk about. I want to do a little brief introduction of what I'm trying to get across to you. Then I want to do another introduction where I'm talking about social selling. When I say attracting buyers, what do I mean? Well, what I really mean is social selling, right? And social selling is just basically using the tools of the trade in 2023, not using 2018, 2010, 1990 tools. Use 2023 tools, and that basically is LinkedIn and YouTube. Those are the 2 primary tools out there for social media. You can also use your website, but far fewer people will visit your website than they do your YouTube channel or your LinkedIn personal profile. I'm not even talking about the company page, right? But so social selling is that. One of the things that I was pointing out, Gus was saying, hey, you need to talk about the 7-hour rule. And the idea of attracting the attention of buyers is we teach this thing called the 7-hour rule. And a 7-hour rule means that you need to engage, or the buyer, the other person needs to engage with your content and you for 7 hours before they ever begin to think about buying from you, right? I say that you really don't have a strategic relationship in place until you've engaged with somebody for 7 hours. Now, they could be consuming your content. I get people who come and say, I've been watching your content for years. I don't even know who they are. I'm looking at their name. I'm like, for years, you couldn't have told me, right? So the 7-hour rule is saying, let's make sure we're putting out enough content that people are learning about what you're teaching, but they're also learning about you and they're learning about your company through the engagements that they're doing through social selling. But the reason I was saying this, pointing this out in particular, is Gus was mentioning, hey, we could put that out as a separate bullet, like over here or something. And I said, if we do, then I have to talk a lot longer about the 7-hour rule. And the reality is the 7-hour rule could fit right in the central circle and become this anchor content. And I want to say this a couple of times as I go through the training. So when I get down to teaching you about how to create your own content and a little bit later in this training, you understand that you can take any topic and move it to the center and then expand upon that topic. And when you do, you're sharing information. The thing to keep in mind is that information is no longer valuable was the wrong word. I was about to say valuable, but it's people are not paying for information. Anybody who's paying for information hasn't taken the time to go find out where it's free. This is something I've had a debate with in my organization in the GovCon chamber for 5 years. I've been on this debate, but actually in the past year, the debate has like gone away. What I say is that we give everything we know away for free for two main reasons, right? The first and most important is because the GovCon Chamber of Commerce's mission is that small businesses are able to succeed and get 50% of the federal revenue dollars. I don't want them to give it to you. I want you to go take it. And the way you take it is to learn how to sell and learn the process for success in the federal market. And so I teach this. I teach everything I know out there for free. And the second reason that I talk about putting information out for free, and this is the content we're going to be talking about, and this is how you attract buyers, is by putting what you know out for free, is that not everybody's going to buy from you. If you've ever seen me talk about the bell curve, and let me show it to you really quick. If you've ever seen this bell curve, I talk about how only the innovators and the early adopters are going to buy from you. The innovators are going to go, oh my God, I finally found you. Here's my money, right? And the early adopters are going to go, oh, let's talk. Let's see where we're at. But really, the early majority is just going to be slow, and you got to convince them. And yes, they'll eventually buy, but not fast. And then you got 50% of whoever you talk to, they're not going to buy. And that's really important to keep in mind, because when you put information out, not only will they not buy from you because you're they just don't want to, but sometimes you're not the right fit. I teach government contracting, and then there's people you might call my competition. I just call them my colleagues out there in some other companies. We might teach the exact same thing, and you might feel comfortable hearing it in their way of delivering it or hearing it in mine. And when we put information out, we're just letting people know we exist. This is why we want to put content out, is so that we can attract the buyers, attract teammates to our world, so they know who we are. And then they can begin to know, like, and trust us. That 7-hour rule is about helping people know, like, and trust you. One of the other things I put here is giver's gain, right? This idea of if you give, you're going to gain. Too many of us think we have to close hold it. I broke this down 5 years ago saying, I'm teaching everything I know, and everything I learn, I'm going to teach. If you want to come to me and work with me, you can pay me for execution. We help you execute on what I teach for free. When I bring people into my workshop, I say, hey, I'm not teaching you anything new. Of course, I'm going to teach you some things that are unique to your business, and that'll be new. But everything I know and everything I'm going to help you with is what I teach for free. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. If you want to attract buyers to come in to do office furniture or cybersecurity or SharePoint or any of the other services and products we do, if you want to bring them in, and I'm looking in here for even somebody who's doing staffing, right? You could sit there and teach the government how to find great staffing personnel. Because if you teach staffing, and I'm just looking at Chase's thing there, if you teach staffing, which is not any kind of expertise you would think like cyber or SharePoint or something, or construction, if you teach staffing, you can still attract buyers by saying, hey, here's how you can attract talent, which is the government's biggest problem right now. And if you teach that, well, maybe teammates and buyers and agencies will come in and say, hey, you know what? I love what you're teaching. Can you just come do it for us? It's like, sure, happy to do that, right? But you're letting them know that you're an expert out there. So all of this is content creation, and that's where I want to go with this, right? Is that when you want to attract buyers, and I say social media, then you want to be able to attract buyers through content creation. Social media is about just putting content out to that people are going to get to. And sometimes, though, people take things that they don't know and they call it complex or hard. Well, it's just the unknown. Everything is complex and hard if you don't know how to do it. I got a BMX bike, just a bicycle, and I got 9-year-olds, right? So we all have it. And I want to teach them how to do wheelies out there. And I've got to relearn how to do wheelies since I haven't done it since I was a kid. But I've got to relearn how to do it. It's going to be complex and hard because when I'm pulling it up, I'm going to be falling off the bike multiple times, right? I'm going to be doing all these things. It's going to seem a little brutal. But at some point, I'm going to look like the coolest dad out there because I'm wheeling around with my sons. And it's the same thing with sales or content creation. If you learn the skills and then practice it, pretty soon you'll look like the coolest innovator out there sharing information. You look like the coolest supreme domain authority, right? And people will want to listen to what you say, which means you've elevated yourself to trusted advisor. So let's talk about how you can create content. I'm coming down here, right? By the way, if you're coming in a little late, this is still, again, the framework I try to teach people is make sure you have an anchor content and then begin to put it around. So what I wrote was step one, what I want you to do and think about is how do you attract buyers through social selling in particular, create an anchor piece of content. And so for today's example, I'm going to use something called zero trust. I'm also going to use what I share on a regular basis. I'll show you some of that. But zero trust is a cybersecurity, an element of cybersecurity. And so I've brought it down and focused it down. And the reason I like it is because for my pretend company, and I have customers who do this, zero trust is a big buzzword in the government. It will be for 10 years as the government transitions into talking about zero trust to actually implementing zero trust. And so, by the way, if you want me to do it for you, happy to help you. But I'll tell you right now how to do it. So zero trust is just cyber, and I want to talk about it. And I'm going to use it as my anchor content. The one thing to keep in mind when you're creating anchor content is make sure that you're using what your core competency are. Like Chase, I mentioned staffing, for example. And some of the other people, we've got SharePoint, project management, we've got construction. You can go down to painting, elevator, and flooring. It doesn't matter what it is. In fact, the more niche you are, the more niche down you are, the more you're able to speak on that topic with complete authority. You're able to share very valuable tips. Is everybody going to care about it? No. But in social selling and attracting buyers, it's not about the view count. I get a lot of views, but it's not about the views. I get a lot of views sometimes, and I bet a quarter of them are not people who are even really consuming the content that I'm providing, but it doesn't matter. I write and create content, and I want you to write and create content for one person. I'm creating content for you. I'm not creating content for you guys, right? There's a big difference there. All I need to do is to make sure I'm helping one person. If you think that way and you begin to think about your content is going to help one person, then that person who needs flooring advice or which elevator should I buy, how should I deploy SharePoint across my organization, whatever it is, they're going to value it. And so what I would recommend when you're picking your core competency is that you start your anchor content with a webinar. If you've been to my training, those are webinars. Whether I do it like this, where I'm just talking, more often than not, by the way, I have, like right now, I can see my face, which is kind of funny. But usually I have a slide deck in front of me and I don't share it. This week I've been sharing some slides for 4 days, but I've done almost 300 trainings and I don't show you any slides. And but I have them there in front of me. It's got a title and it's got some bullets. It's not about me wanting to share the slides with you. It's about just helping me. But you can do that same thing. You can create a PowerPoint deck around your topic, right? And so you got to pick a topic. And what I wrote was the easiest way to create an anchor topic is to take something like, do me a favor, if you're feeling generous, put in the chat an example of a topic that you might do. By the way, the government puts out almost no content. Yeah, I mean, I see that point, Sean, but they're the least helpful to small businesses out there. I just found a whole bunch of strategic plans that are in the Social Security Administration. It was incredibly hard to find it. And when you see me share it, I'm going to go, look like a genius. And that's why I teach people how to Google search so they can find it themselves. But I wish the government would like do what you want them to do. Sidebar there. But if you have a topic, put it in, whatever that topic is, because I'd like to kind of look and bounce it off it. But use the 5 W's and H when you're creating content. So 5 W's, let's say I said zero trust is my example. What I want to create is content around, and maybe my first webinar would be like slide 1, why you should care about zero trust. Why zero trust matters to your organization. Why zero trust will help your organization execute its mission more effectively, et cetera, right? That's W for why. What is zero trust? What should you pay attention to most about zero trust? What are the top 5 lessons learned from other agencies about zero trust? I go into where, right? Where is zero trust applied? Where does zero trust fit into your organization? And in there, if I'm talking about it, I can talk about zero trust when I say where. I can talk about it at the enterprise level. I can talk about zero trust down at the homegrown solutions where people are creating their own applications in Excel or Access or whatever small tool they're using that might not be an enterprise tool. I can talk about zero trust. Where does it apply? It applies in these silos and it applies in the centralized areas that are enterprise levels, right? When should you be applying zero trust? And in there, I might talk about, look, don't try to do zero trust en masse. Do it in little pilot projects around the board. Find the least complex systems and apply zero trust in there and start having these wins and work it up. So when should you do zero trust? I might say, well, here's a 3-year plan to get to a full zero trust architecture or status, right? And then the last one is who. So who should be thinking about zero trust? Well, this is what leaders should think about. This is what system owners should think about. So if it's somebody owns an HR tool, right? What they should think about. How, who is the when I talk about who, the users, the end users, how to talk to the end users about it. Why should the end users care about it? And so when you do the 5 W's and the H, you're able to pull up a pretty good set of topics. The reason this is helpful is because when you create a webinar like that, that's the anchor topic, right? And then I move on to this step 2, and it's called repurposing. If I do a webinar on zero trust or, like the things I do right now, I can repurpose it out to other areas. Podcasts, as an example. If I want to sit there and in fact, I do this right now. I'm doing this event with you, live training right now. As soon as we're done, we will take that audio file and put it right up into our podcast. It's immediately available across multiple podcast platforms, and we didn't have to hardly do anything because I just recorded it here. And by the way, you can do a webinar without showing your face. You can do a webinar where you just got it and you can still put the audio up because no one's seeing the audio on the podcast. I do that right now. I just got an email a couple of days ago from somebody who said she was saying she loves the content we're putting out. I really appreciate it because I listen on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever. And so I listen to that on my commute, and I really appreciate that you're doing that. Well, you could do that same thing. It doesn't really cost you anything beyond the initial setup of activities. Repurposing, you can take Cecilia on our team. She just took something I did yesterday about the small business directory. She just snipped a little piece of the video, and any intern can do this. And so any of us can learn how to do this. But she snipped it and put it over on our GovCon Chamber site or on our LinkedIn profile. And now it's telling more people about the small business directory we have. But rather than just in writing, it's got this little video of me talking about it because apparently I talked about it yesterday. There's ways to do that. When you create a webinar with those 5 W's and a how, then you're able to break that content down and share it to other places. You can begin to then repurpose it out into Twitter and Facebook. I don't like those tools at all. In fact, I say they're horrible, but when you do activities like sharing the way I'm sharing out on LinkedIn, it'll push it to Facebook and Twitter automatically. And so you're getting more visibility. So that's creating anchor content. I really want you to think about, and let me just look here. So actually, let me just use Katie's thing as a perfect example, right? Katie in the chat put the zero trust, the Office of the President put out an executive order, and it's about zero trust and saying, hey, we all must do zero trust. And in it, it talks about by certain dates, you must do that. And this is a good time for me to talk about repurposing other people's content. When you're talking about how to attract a federal buyer, you could do something as simple as taking that and sharing it out on your profile. Again, remember, only share what's tied to your core competency. Why should you be sharing stuff about federal sales or pricing if you're selling cybersecurity or if you're selling elevator stuff. So keep it around what you're doing so that you can be seen for that over and over. But that executive order on zero trust, you can share just that document out, right? You can share that document out in a way that I tend to do, which is then reading it and summarizing kind of the top bullets in my post. Or you can sit there and share it out and say, hey, are you aware of this date's coming up? Here are the top 3 things you should pay attention to in order to execute this. I wanted to show you, I want to share my screen really quick and just show you a couple of other things that I do for content, just to get your mind rolling on this idea. Entire screen. Okay, so let me just come into my own deck. This is my super secret PowerPoint deck that I use, right? And in here, I just want to show you a couple other things. I have a 7-step process for federal revenue success. This is the process I teach for business development and capture success. It doesn't need to be complicated. 7 steps is enough. Well, you could do the same thing. What's your 7-step process for elevator maintenance? What's your 7-step process for zero trust architecture? What's your 7-step process for anything? Another way of looking at a 7-step process could be like this one that I did, which is a subcontracting roadmap. How do you make money subcontracting? Well, this is 2021, 2022, where I laid out the steps to get subcontracting, right? Set your goals, move forward, establish early meetings with people, identify opportunities as a sub or a prime down here, and then develop reusable proposal content. So I just put together this map, and it's pretty easy. I just, in PowerPoint, you can just put this down. And the idea is this was really helpful because I could share it out as a roadmap. It's an image people like, they put it on their wall. I can also use this entire thing as a standalone webinar, walking through each step, and you could do the same thing, create roadmaps. Another way of doing a roadmap is a funnel. Here I really push, this is talking about 8A, but I'm really pushing DSBS, and I'm teaching how the federal market uses DSBS and does market research within DSBS. Well, could you do something similar that talks about how do things typically go wrong in cybersecurity, or what are the 5 steps? As you're trying to think about what's the best elevator to buy, think about this, then think about this, then think about this kind of thing. Here I'm talking about inputs and outputs. So here I'm talking about your small business profile is GSA-SAM.gov and SBA DSBS combined, right? They make up your small business profile. And so here you can see that government buyers are looking at it and they're coming in. And what I say here and what I'm trying to imply is that when you have a good profile, it can feed out to these company marketing assets that you have. And then again, here, who else is using it? Industry. So these are some examples of ways you can put content together. And just really quickly, you can use a wheel format I've used. Here, I'm talking about CPARs and I was trying to communicate it. Look how I did this, right? What is CPARs? What does it rate? What are the levels? Why is CPARs important? Some tips for the working with the KO and the CO, and then end user tips yourself. And when you're working with the actual customer there, when you look at some of this content I put out, right, it's not rocket science that I'm doing. I'm just taking my time and getting better and better and better over the years. But really, most importantly, what I'm doing and what I want to leave you with is I want you to sit there and start sharing what you know. Start on LinkedIn. It's the easiest place to share information. And you can start with as simple as just a post where all you do is type in, hey, top 3 things to consider when this, right? And as you start putting it out, don't care about the views, don't care about the likes or anything. Care about sharing your information. Everything else will take care of itself, right? Just givers gain. And I really want you to think about that. So let me leave you with one last task here is I want you to do an anchor content, right? Do this today. Have lunch and just pull out a piece of paper and write down something in the middle of a circle and say, here's my anchor content. If I was going to talk about something, top 5 this, and write it down and start working on that. Do me a favor. If you find this content valuable and you find this training valuable and you've been watching this for a while, become a sustaining member. Help us make this available to everybody who's out there. If you're already doing pretty well in the government space and you want to go to the next level and you're looking for a mentor and a coach, reach out to me for the BD Accelerator Workshop. Happy to help you there. And then the last thing is, I really want you to remember as you continue every single day, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is having fun. I'm about to go having fun on my birthday, so I hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you in the next training.